All right, you ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Good morning, Little Rock. It's time for another episode of the Blocktalk. I'm Jamie Taylor, and I'm here with my special guest, Wayne Miller.
Hey, Jamie. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning, and it's so nice to be with you. When I first met you, I walked into the sound room, I believe it was, at THV 11, and there you were. I said, what is this, the cool people section?
Yeah.
And there you were. So it was incredible to meet you then, and I know you're in charge. You are the executive director of the Venture Center, correct?
That's my role. It is, yep.
So before we get into what you're doing there, how did you get there? What are you doing here in Arkansas? I mean, how did they get you to come here and do this?
Yeah, great question. I have to admit it. I'd never stepped into Arkansas before in my life before this opportunity presented itself. And I've got a background in building startups. I've been involved in a number of them over the years, about 12 altogether. Was involved with one that we took public called Proxycom, now part of Dimension Data. And started my life in education to be a dentist because my dad and granddad were dentists, but really just loved business and starting companies, and I've had some great experiences and opportunities. Some good, some not so good. You learn from your failures too, which have been great. I was prior to coming to Little Rock, I was involved in the private equity world. So I was working. I've got a background in medical device, about 14 years of my life in that area, and I was running for a private equity firm, a medical device division for them, and brought 4 companies together. We did a merger, closed them down. Stood up a new company for all that, and I just wasn't that enamored with private equity. It was a lot about the analysts and the economics of that, which is important in getting returns. But there's also the people side of the business, and PE is very much about a return and not so much growing a great business all the time. They aren't necessarily the same thing. So after I left the PE firm, I was trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and an opportunity presented itself for an accelerator actually down in Florida, with an organization called Startup Bootcamp to do a medical device accelerator down there. And I thought, this is sort of cool. I could really take my background, I could apply it, I could be helpful. I'm sort of at a stage in my life where I really want to kind of pay back, right? Mm-hmm. It's not all about the money, if you will. So I've had some great mentors and just extraordinary people in my life who've really, really helped me a lot and helped me be successful. And as I looked at their model, I was really not enamored about it because it was really more about just deal flow for investors. So how many companies could you bring through and how many investor opportunities could you create? And it didn't really lean in that hard to the entrepreneur. And my interest is to help entrepreneurs do great things. And if you build great companies and you can demonstrate that people want to buy what you've got to sell, because you don't have a business unless somebody buys something, right?
Right.
And you got to make some money at it too, which is another, obviously important factor. But I was like, this is interesting, but I'm not really sure it's for me. And I started to do a little bit more research. And I came across what was happening here at the Venture Center in Little Rock with this FIS FinTech Accelerator. And I'm not a FinTech guy. I don't have a background in financial technology, but I understand technology, I understand how to build businesses. And so I explored it further. I've met with Brian Bauer, who now works for me. And as he said, he got a chance to hire his boss, and I'm lucky to have him and the team that I have.
Exciting.
And we kind of courted each other for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I finally said, look, I need to come there. So I jumped in an airplane, came down here and spent 5 days. And, Little Rock's funny, as we've talked before, it's about the people,
Yep.
and when you come here to visit and they have an interest in you, they put the full Nelson on you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the mayor, it's the governor, it's it's Jay from the chamber, et cetera. It's just an extraordinary lot of people, and just immediately put their arms around me. And
they put Jay from the chamber on everybody because they know.
Yeah. And he's on my board. And he's absolutely been a mentor and a Sherpa to me, if you will, within the the Little Rock community and in Arkansas. But I said, hey, I think this is great. I'd love to give it a shot. So that's how I ended up here, and never had Arkansas on my radar in my life, and it's really been extraordinary. I've been very fortunate.
Well, you mentioned something, and I feel like I picked up right then, and this is where my passion is. You talked about basically these building great companies. I think you're talking about meeting human needs, and that's the thing is you can build a business, right? But what really makes it thrive and what makes it grow is the connection of those people and the passion that they feel and pushing that together and finding a way to make that grow. I noticed that you guys had demo day recently, and after we met, I was so fortunate that you invited me to be able to attend. And watching it, I watched these people who were extremely passionate about what they're doing, working as hard as they can under the supervision of people who really know how to make it work for them financially. And they're fighting for this position and this opportunity that isn't present anywhere else in the country. Isn't it true that this accelerator of ours is one of the top ones in the country anyways for startups?
Yeah, so thanks. I'll actually take a minute to brag. We...
That's what you're here for.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. But no, we actually just very, very recently, in the last few weeks, we became a finalist for the best FinTech accelerator in the globe. One of 6 finalists through the Finovate organization. Finovate is a series of global conferences that occur in Singapore, in the UK, San Francisco, and also New York. And we attend these. We go there to recruit. Typically, you see about 100 companies at these events. So it's a recruiting event for us. We go there. We spend pretty much the months of September and October out recruiting for our two big accelerator programs. But anyhow, so we're going there on the 24th of September. I hope we come home a winner. We're up against the big guys. I think it's a giant win for us just to be on the list.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. It puts us right on the map. I mean, Arkansas really doesn't, people don't think like Little Rock, Arkansas, that's where I'm going to go to build my startup technology. Right. But just, that's crazy anyways, because we're not only super friendly to small business and it's easy to build here, but we have something like that where you can work towards an accelerator.
Well, and we have history, right? So, one of the things that makes us relevant as it relates to FinTech is the founding of Systematics here in 1968. So that is now FIS today, who just completed a $43 billion acquisition of WorldPay and is one of our key partners, and really has given us our training wheels initially for the first couple of years to build this program the way that we have, that fundamentally is sort of a template now that we can overlay on other industry, and we're working on that strategy, and I'll talk to that a little bit, and then the relationship with the ICBA. But it is a combination of efforts that has given us our success. Like I said, we're a team of 6 people. So at the end of the day, our capacity to recruit, to guide, to mentor, to manage the logistics associated with it, just to put on demo day, it's a huge undertaking for us. And I'm just entirely blessed by having a team that just crushes it every day, Really lucky.
And they're really passionate about it. You can tell when you're around them. I mean, even Mimi, like everything that she does, it's just like all of it is dripping with passion. Everybody really feels like they're in their place and they're doing the thing that makes them successful, that they enjoy.
Well, and I think too, one of the big differentiators for us as I look at other types of programs, and I don't like to think that we compete with anyone. I think we all do what we do it well. And I also think in the state of Arkansas, I've been, the largest mouth and advocate relative to collaboration between us and other entrepreneurial service organizations here. I can understand that sometimes we're kind of fighting for the same bucks, and that creates some competitive, energy as it relates to state dollars and those sort of things. But at the end of the day, isn't it about Arkansas?
Right.
So I'm delighted to get the recognition for the Venture Center, but I'm more delighted that we're putting Arkansas on the map and Little Rock on the map. This is a global recognition for our state and for our community. And that jazzes me, because I really feel like that's an ROI, right?
Well, and it also jazzes me because I like how you're talking about Arkansas, and it just sounds like home to you and like you've been here forever. But, and that's part of, when you come to Arkansas, you become a part of what we are here, because it's very easy.
Whether you want to or not, right?
Yeah, you can't, kicking and screaming, they're going to make you love that. And that's why I think their theme is love Little Rock. You don't have a choice.
We talked about it earlier, right?
What's not to love?
And we talk about what are the key ingredients. It's about the people. It's about access, right? We giggle about having the mayor's phone number and them, being able to get a meeting with the governor and these sorts of things. But you really can do that here. And we were talking about degrees of separation. I mean, it's just remarkable how people know people here and how quickly you can get connected. And these are people who are decision makers. These are people who can have an impact, whether it's funding, whether it's access to market, whatever the case may be. Arkansas is just remarkable that way.
Yeah.
You can't do this in other states.
No,
it's just that I'm aware of. So that's a fair statement, I think.
No, and that's one of the things that we've enjoyed on the podcast. Is the whole goal of the podcast, right, is to have conversations with people like you that come here and find success in this market, so that we can take your value and add that to the community. Our hope is that there's a group of millennials with a startup in their garage right now listening to this podcast, and they're like, Wayne has some accelerator, but let's take our thing over there and figure out what we can do. Maybe there's a piece missing, and then we can be the next Google. We can be the next. There's a guy here trying to do something called TikTok Automotive. His name's Jamie Davidson. He originally Little Rock native. It's off kind of a clothing line. His application he's trying to do is they come to your house and they fix your car in the driveway.
You bet.
Things like that. Those little startups that are growing all around town. I'm guessing you're probably hearing from people every day that are doing startups, right? Or
we do, because we have our accelerators are kind of what we're known for, but really we have a huge responsibility, and 50% of our effort is about supporting this community.
Right.
I mean, the Venture Center is kind of our mantra, is about education, collaboration, and acceleration. We've talked a lot about acceleration, but when it comes to collaboration, it's also being able to work with other corporate entities, with universities, and also with the other entrepreneurial service organizations in the state, and really trying to be, a good steward of that concept, right?
Okay.
But when it comes to the educate piece, is how do we take that guy or those 2 women in the garage working off the back of a napkin with some idea and give them a place to start?
Right.
Where do I begin? And in the Venture Center, we want to be that X marks the spot. Here's where you go. And be able to direct them to the right resources, right? To give them the map, right? So who should I go to for this, and where can I go to for that? How can I validate my business, and who can mentor me, and so forth? So, it's helping startups is hard. It's not an easy thing to do necessarily.
So what if you have somebody like I know a woman that wants to start a cafe. She wants a coffee shop where she could take her special needs child, where the people that work there keep an eye on her special needs child, because they have that kind of training, so that she can do her business, because she can't focus on her business because she's doing that, and there is no place in town that you can go to bring your special needs child where you can have coffee with another woman and connect and try to build. You know what I mean? From there.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And is that what it's there for? I mean, people come straight to the Venture Center and, hey, look, here's my idea. And you just say, well, then you need to go over here to City Connections and talk to Steve, or you need to go over here to the Chamber of Commerce, talk to Jay.
Yep. We started something, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, which is sort of what we refer to as a huddle hour, right? We don't really promote that the way we used to, but fundamentally we're there for that purpose. So, you talked about people who are passionate, right? So founders and people want to start companies. You have to be passionate. When we select companies, we have an expression which, a lot of pretty horses out there. You got to find the right jockeys, right? And it is about that. It is about trying to find people who have that capacity, that passion, that grit, that resilience. They can walk through walls because it's hard, right? There's no right answers oftentimes. But as I said earlier, you've got to find and develop a business and a business model that's sustainable, that's ultimately profitable, and that people are going to love and engage with. And if people don't buy your stuff, you don't have a business. I'm sorry, it's just that simple, right? So we help to distill that and give people some of the tools that are required. Today, we don't do 30-page business plans anymore, right? We work off a lean canvas approach, which is an extraordinary way to go about it. We promote the concept of failure. We want to see you fail fast, right? Because why continue to screw around with it and invest money and time into it if it's not going to be valid? But it also may demonstrate, the big word today is pivot, right? So maybe we need to turn 3 or 4 degrees. I have another expression I love, which is you can't always, necessarily control the winds, but you can learn how to direct the sails, right? So how do you change that trajectory and take a great idea? I mean, Airbnb is a great example. It started with blow-up mattresses in people's houses, and look what it became.
Yeah.
The other thing, too,
I have my own ideas about that.
What's that?
I said I have some ideas about that, technology and Airbnb.
But the other thing, too, is, it's not all about just hunting unicorns. It's also about just building great businesses. I've owned restaurants, transmission shops, run a taxi company. Building great and profitable businesses is, great lifestyle businesses are great lifestyle business. What's the matter with building a business that generates $1, $2, $3, $8, $10 million a year, right? I mean, nothing. That's the backbone of our country.
Right.
So how do we give people access to funding, give them the right advice, help them find the right people, and help them validate what they're doing? And that's very much what the Venture Center tries to do through workshops, through things like Lift the Rock, where we try to inspire people to make that jump, right? Because it takes a set, as they say, to jump off the cliff and start a business and quit that day job, and that because you've done that. It's not easy to do,
Not for the faint of heart by any means.
Well, it isn't absolutely, and it's hard on family. I'm still at my age trying to figure out what is life work balance exactly.
Yeah, I don't think there is a such thing. I think the funny part about balance is that there's always something that's out of balance, and the more that I pursue a passion, it's like with the podcast. I mean, the podcast is built off of finding people and telling their story, because I can't stand living in this city and see people like you, and meeting you is so incredible. And getting to see what you guys were doing over there, and then not telling everybody about it. I mean, that is what I'm in love with. It doesn't matter if it's funded or not funded, to be quite honest. We're going to keep doing it because it's what brings us joy. It's what brings us passion. So to find somebody that's here creating this opportunity for entrepreneurs to come in and say, okay, I'm in a safe space here. I have this wonderful idea. These people are on my side. They're going to help me be on the map. They're not going to come take my idea. They're not going to cut me down and say, they're going to say, hey, go ahead, open the gate. Run the race, see if you can win. If not, let's circle back around and see what we can do to help you.
Yeah, and help them
get
along
stronger.
the way. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, it's not all just about trying to build these big giant companies like Google and Amazon, et cetera. So
right. And so what is the why? I mean, when you think about the fact that you're in a mid-South city, you're in the capital city of Arkansas, you've got a river running right through, you're in the middle of a downtown that sits on a feasibility analysis from an outside perspective from this country going, wow, that place is about to blow up. What is your why? What is your, why do you feel like at this point you're going to keep going with this particular venture? What is it that drives you to go every day and continue to push through these walls?
It's a great question. There's a lot of answers to that. I think when we were talking earlier, I mentioned that, I think I've finally kind of figured out what I'm supposed to do with my life and what my purpose is, and I think this is definitely fulfilling that for me. And you don't always know how these things are going to land on you, right? And so I think, first of all, I'm just entirely inspired by the passion of entrepreneurs. I mean, I just find it to be just invigorating, energizing, and to help them to be able to take my successes and failures and apply that in some fashion and help direct the team and work with the team. I think one of the reasons we're doing the good work that we're able to do at the Venture Center is because of my team. And I know I mention them a lot because I'm fortunate to have them, but also because they've owned and operated businesses. This isn't some folks who just want to, who haven't really done that before and just want to contribute to making entrepreneurs better. I mean, I think you have to come from a place of knowing, right?
Right.
And so I think we can contribute. Look, just dealing with people and customers is a set of skills that you know, and I look very hard at people that have played sports. I look very hard at people that have worked in retail or waited on tables, because I think those teach you characteristics that you just don't get anywhere else. I think those are important characteristics, you know, and you know, what Brian's done, what Daniel's done, what Ashley's done, Mimi, et cetera, these are people that have all succeeded in many ways, but also had failures to relate to these people. So that gives us an edge, and I think it gives us the ability to really be helpful to these folks. So it's very much about the passion of the entrepreneurs. It's very much about helping them turn these into great business. It's also really enjoyable to work with great partners, right? And to have the support of the city, to have the support of the governor, to have the support of the mayor, to have the support of Jay. You know, I can go on, and the partners that have supported us here. You know, this is how we're able to do this with 6 people, right?
Right.
You know, it takes a village, and it's about collaboration. And you know, I look at each of these programs and the way the community supports us and what we do. And just this past week, you know, having Harron Higginbotham sit there and talk about the history of TCBY and what he's doing now and so forth. You know, it's pretty cool. Charles Morgan, these sorts of folks, Millie Ward, of course, and these are people who've built great businesses.
I know. I can't. When you said all those names just now, I was thinking about just the rich history of Arkansas. And so many wonderful things have come out of this state. Yeah. And I heard yesterday the mayor was at a luncheon for the Little Rock Board of Realtors, and he was talking about one of the things as a city is we don't capitalize enough on those strengths. We don't talk about them. So much of our history is ingrained in such, you know, heavily politicized, or, you know, one view on another situation. We don't get an opportunity to capitalize on the fact that we are one of the most beautiful, architecturally beautiful, nature beautiful places to live. We have the second. Central Park is the only park bigger than Burns Park in the entire nation, as far as a public park goes. We have everything.
So I didn't know that.
Need.
That's a great statistic.
I mean, it's amazing. 70% of our healthcare providers in the United States come out of UAMS, or at least practice or train at some point. UAMS at Children's Hospital. Yeah. We're the most advanced in cancer research and cancer care for non-responsive breast cancer. We have everything, you know, and now we've got the Venture Center. And that's the thing is, now we're trying to put all this. I just get excited because we have this ecosystem of all this medicine and all of this education, and now you're going to link it with technology and banking. Hello, like, watch out, everyone else.
Well, and you know, that's the strategy that we're taking, actually. So, you know, we are looking to serve other industries in terms of taking our model to both healthcare as well as ag, and we're very excited about that. But the path that we're taking is not what most people would perceive. It's not about building a healthcare accelerator. It's not about building an agricultural accelerator. It's about taking the skills that we've developed in financial technology and applying it to those industries. So instead of kind of going vertically, we're going to drill horizontally. So we're going to take this set of skills that we have, because really what we're doing is we're going to help healthcare and we're going to help ag solve business problems leveraging technology from the FinTech space. So we're looking at like FinHealth and FinAg is kind of how we're naming that.
Well, and that makes, I mean, you should do Fin podcast. I'll do that part. I think it's interesting how as you're doing this, though, think about the vertical integration that a company normally does. We're a developer. They come into a community and they say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy the real estate company, and then I'm going to buy the builder, and I'm going to build from here, okay?
Right.
That's kind of where we have this big medical history. We have all of this technology, and then or financial, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to integrate that underneath and say, hey, medical community, here's some technology so that you can do medical care from your iPad.
Exactly. There, you know, where transactions occur is where we can be impactful. And transactions aren't just about you and I exchanging money.
No.
It's about exchanging data. It's about monetization of data. It's about, you know, analytics today, particularly data analytics and data science. It's about, you know, ag is a huge piece of our state's existence, right? It's the most important.
The number one thing.
It's the most important, you know, contributor to our base here. And, you know, small farmers are challenged, but there's a great connection there when you just look at banking alone, right? So 80% of ag loans come from community banks. So we are connected to the largest community bank organization in the world, which is the ICBA. Yeah. So how do we help those farmers and how do we help those bankers make those transactions faster, better, leverage the assets accordingly, and so forth? There's a lot of problem sets that we're evaluating. And the same thing exists in healthcare, you know, data wallets, how images are transferred, security issues and cyber associated with that, and so forth. So we've already started to make some headway with 3 companies with UAMS right now to help with that.
That is so exciting. And so what do you do about when you look at our strengths as a state and you say agriculture is our number one thing, but then on the flip side, and I hate to like bring up the negatives, right, but to be devil's advocate, on the flip side, we have a major issue with like drug abuse among children between ages of 12 and 17. We don't have proper food into their households. We have food insecurity, all these things going on, but we are a state with all of this agriculture and all of this medicine. So how do we solve a problem of starving sick children? when we have all of the best things here to do it? You know what I mean? Is that your place with the technology? Like, where does technology fit in there to knit some of those problems?
You know, it's interesting because, as we go through what we go through with financial tech, I mean, you saw at Demo Day, you saw Change, you saw Genevity. So these are people who are helping with the student loan crisis. These are people helping with retirement crises and so forth. We had Susu. So we tend to have participants in the program, not always necessarily by design, because it's not necessarily a problem set, but there is a set of problems associated with that we see, and we try to find application and technology to support that. But how do we get the underbanked and the unbanked more exposed to the opportunities that exist here? I wish I had a better answer for you, except that we're trying to kind of chisel away at that as we can, kind of one chip at a time. And you see when the banks come through that these are relevant solutions to trying to deal with those problems. From a healthcare perspective, I don't know the answer. And certainly, if there's an opportunity for us to figure out ways to apply technology to help resolve or reduce those problems in any way, shape, or form, we want to do that. I mean, the other area I'm interested in is ed tech, right? I mean, and that's an area and it's just so simple to me because, we teach everybody the same, but yet we really all learn differently. And I believe technology can play a role in that. I mean, I was that kid, right? I was the kid who was quickly bored and would probably have been, somebody who said ADD today, and they would have been pumping Ritalin in me and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I came before those times occurred. But the point is that, I was able to get it quickly, and then I was bored, right? So how could technology today have helped me as a child to do a better job in educating myself? Maybe if it was at a different pace than others, but whatever the case. And I think those things are being addressed, but I think there's technological opportunity for us there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think when you say that, you all of a sudden bring up the whole no excuse thing I give my son every day. I'm like, you have no excuse not to be good at everything. You want to know why? Because YouTube.
Yeah.
Because Google.
That's
because
right.
It's the Internet
That's right.
of Things. Don't tell me you can't be good at something.
That's
Go watch
right.
a video.
That's right.
And sit at the keyboard.
And as we talk about characteristics of great people, one of the things today that I have an expectation of is we look at people and we look at participants and these sort of things, is are they self-learners? It's a big thing, right?
Send me a few of those. Self-starting people are very hard to find. And,
Right.
and I think a lot of that comes down, like we talked about human problems, I think a lot of that comes down to that insecurity of just being a human and just being out here on your own trying to make it. And when you're getting to the level where you are coming to the venture center and you're like, hey, can someone here help me? Obviously, you've gotten to the point where you've got some bravery, you know what I mean? But you may not have been brought up in an environment that makes you have the confidence to go out and ask for help.
That's right.
So what does that person do? There's got to be some way, like you're talking about with ed tech, to reach that person, because who is underserved or underprivileged may be the person who has the next apple.
You bet. And to have the courage to do that, right? And to try to inspire people to take those risks, because it is risky, right? It's not, like you said earlier, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
No. So tell me about a little bit, so Changed is who won the FinTech Accelerator, right? And I wanted to just kind of talk about that with our audience in the sense that basically what happened was kind of a Shark Tank, I feel like it was sort of a live Shark Tank. Can you kind of explain how that goes and
as far as
how to get involved if you're a startup, and how Demo Day works?
Yeah, so twice a year. So we run two programs as it relates to the Accelerator. January, February, March is the ICBA program. So that's focused on community banks and trying to find solutions for them. And then we have May, June, July, which is the FIS program. So that's really trying to find product for FIS. So that focuses. So we cast our net sort of on a global basis. We get about 200 to 300 applications per program. We'll get those from, it's been 47 countries, I think 26 states, 6 continents. We're not getting Greenland or Antarctica. I'm not sure which one. I never can remember which is the I guess Greenland's in the news.
We have listeners in Ireland, so
well, there you
fine.
go. It's good. They're building great startups, actually great tech startups in Ireland. So there's an application process. It's highly competitive. To get that down to 10 companies, we usually distill it down to about 15. It takes us about 120 days, almost 3 months, to kind of get through that process or better. It is kind of part of our secret sauce, if you will. We work really, really hard at that because the program's really, really good if we pick good companies, right? That's sort of the simple side of that. So once they're accepted, they then we're very prickly about them being here in Little Rock for 12 weeks, and there's really 3 key reasons for that. One is we want to show them Arkansas, right? So the state is helping to fund our program. The ADC, the governor, Mike Preston, Tom Chilton, that group, they're very supportive of what we do through the Accelerator Fund. So we want to show them the state. We want to show them the best of the state. We take them to Northwest Arkansas. We take them to, they get a chance to go to the mountains, and we kick off usually in Mount Magazine, these sorts of things. And the chamber welcomes them to town with our kickoff dinners and stuff like that. So the community and everybody comes around to meet them and see what they're, and we show them around. Because I don't think we've had people in the program outside of 1 or 2 that have actually been from Arkansas that have ever been to Arkansas, right? So we've had Israel, Australia, Poland, Switzerland, obviously New York, San Francisco, Chicago. I mean, so really from all over the globe. So it's pretty cool. And we've had 7 of those companies elect to make this their home, which is even better.
That's so amazing.
Right? So they'll come here. They're here for 12 weeks. Like I said, the 3 things that are important is 1, showing them Arkansas. 2 is during the course of the 12 weeks, we'll bring 60 plus financial institutions to work with them. And this isn't a buying environment. It's a little bit of a lie because obviously we want them selling all the time.
Right.
But fundamentally, we bring these people in to help them shape, mold, and sculpt their solutions for market. So it's really about going to market, right? And that one-on-one time that they get. It's great for the banks because they get firsthand look at innovation. Great for FIS, gets them, big companies working with early stage companies. It's not easy. It's right. They just don't do what we do well, frankly,
Yeah, but I mean, pause for the goosebumps because you're talking about mixing this old school proven sense of business and this sort of like capitalist kind of society that we've all grown up in. And then boom, here's this innovative startup group of people who are raised a totally different way that rely heavily on technology to solve all of their problems.
Yeah.
I'm quitting my job. I'm coming to work for you.
Come on, we always got a spot for you. And then the last piece is, there's this wonderful stuff that happens between them, right? I mean, so they're non-competitive as far as how we select them, right? We don't want 2 of this. We don't want 2 blockchain solutions or 2 necessarily payment solutions, that side of things. So these kind of collisions that occur, these wonderful collisions that occur between them, because one is good at performers, one may be good at sales, one may be good at marketing, et cetera. So they help each other and they build lifetime relationships as we do with them. So it's really cool. I mean, we're at 50 alumni now.
Yeah,
so
these guys from Change are just like joining the class of the last few guys who their startup, and then they're watching their success, and maybe they're able to learn from the mistakes that they make in their first year on market.
Well, and they're a really interesting example too, because I mean, obviously they're solving a problem as far as the student debt crisis is concerned with this roundup mentality and really motivating people to do that, right? So my kids are on it actually.
Plus, it's catchy. Oh, I mean, I'm all over it. It's so catchy. The little squirrel is so cute.
Yeah.
It's well branded. It's well thought out. It's a major need. People need to have that problem solved. I mean, if you have student loan debt, you better Google Change right now.
Well, and they were a Shark Tank contender, right? And actually, Mark Cuban made an investment in them, so that's sort of cool, right? That's that's important that there's some validation.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah,
that was cool.
But the other thing too is they came into this program with a B to C solution, right? So they were really focused on consumers. So where we were able to give them guidance, mentorship, direction, and help them in molding their solution was how do they go B to B to C? So how do they get the bank involved in that process, and how do they make what they're doing valuable with their brand to the bank to help attract depositors, right? To help provide a service for them to, if banks can help people reduce student loans, then there's a higher likelihood that one, they gain trust in that process, right? As being a trusted advisor in how people are managing their finances, but also you're getting involved with people and millennials in life decision processes. So much when you listen to Nick and Dan's story, his inability to buy a house, even though he qualified, was because he had all this student loan debt. And he said, look, I can't manage the student loan debt and a mortgage. So if I can get that paid down faster, that creates opportunities for the bank in the life cycle of that client, because going to school, buying a car, buying a house, having kids, sending them to college, retirement. I mean, there is a sequence of events that occurs in most of our lives. So being able to really galvanize that relationship with a financial institution, utilizing their technology is the objective. And we really help them do that.
Yeah, I mean, that just blows my mind because the creditworthiness of the borrowers is immediately improved. They pay off the student loan. Now all of a sudden they're creditworthy. Now they can buy a house. The bank gets to lend them more money.
Exactly right.
Then they want to buy investment property. Jamie pops up, hey, buy this apartment complex. They're going to borrow more money. So, I mean, it's just incredible the way that the problems lend themselves to being solved and then turn it around again. And you're adding the finance piece, the technology piece. We could talk about this all day. I really love this.
And listen, the amazing thing is today we do this from our sofa at 10 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah, this is crazy.
This isn't, while we're watching Game of Thrones.
It's the Internet of Things, and I think that's what the crazy part right now is. I believe that there is no way in the world that anyone should feel without purpose or without love. Because if you get on the internet, you can literally find the answer to all of your questions, somebody that wants to listen, you know what I mean? And a place to go to fit in and to be yourself. And I think if people would play on that strength and look at places like the Venture Center and just throw their whole risk to the wind, just go try the thing that you want to try.
Like I said, it takes a lot of courage to do it. The other thing too is I think, I agree with your thinking, but I also think too, as we look at the internet today, one of the things that's important too is to develop a filter, right?
Right.
Because there's a lot of stuff out there, right? And it's some of it's not so good, right? But
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like with the Blocktalk, so we try really hard not to cover, anything that's super, super polarizing to one side or another. But at the same time, it's kind of exciting when you bring up something polarizing because you've got to get a reaction. You know what I mean? It's like what you said. If no one's going to buy it, it's not going to sell.
Right.
So you want to be able to put those things out there and talk about them, have those conversations. Otherwise, I don't know if all the millennials that listen to this show are going to know about what the Venture Center does and how they can take their startup down there and learn from it. So like you said, develop a filter, but also be curious. Go out and find...
be courageous. Take a chance. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting. As you talk about that, because one of the things that we're looking at is I have the good fortune to work with Annabeth Gorman at the WFA and Ryder Butry and so forth, and we're talking about how do we help women, people of color, how do we truly work towards inclusion, and one of the challenges you have is you don't want to sort of put people into this box. Well, this is women only, or this is African Americans only, and so forth. But also, if you don't create these opportunities to include people, and you don't want to, when we talk about the women's issues in particular, there's always this sort of man's world things, right? And I get that, but at the same time, and standing up some sort of an event or an opportunity to allow women to prosper within this state and create better opportunities for inclusion. There's people who challenge me on that, well, you're making it kind of the Special Olympics thing for women. Well, yeah, it may be that, but so what's the other option there? The other option there is inaction. So you got to do something. So let's go do something, right? I mean, that's the thing. So, because if you don't want to make it different and you want to make it the way it is, then you're just gonna support the status quo.
Right.
So you have to have the courage to say, okay, we're gonna do it this way, right? Because like I said, inaction is not the right solution, which is the point I think you're making.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought a huge thing to the table though when we talk about this, because when you talk about startups and opportunity, right? And then you just talked about women being in a box or somebody being in a box based on where they come from.
Right.
For me, that has been very true. As a woman trying to open a business, the accessibility in Little Rock's incredible. I was able to reach the people I needed to reach, open a business, execute. Here I am. At the same time, I've left meetings and quite frankly, walked out of appointments where I've said, did I do a good job? And I've had, maybe somebody or a partner or developer say something like, oh, I mean, you had it when you walked in the room in that dress. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you said. We already were going to give you the deal because of that. So there's times too where it does hurt you as a woman in business and you don't really want to say anything about it because at the same time, you did nail the deal, right? And you don't want to give away the fact that you nailed the deal based on your appearance because you think you nailed it based on your intelligence, right? So if you don't put us in a box, how do we ever know how we're competing against our competition either?
Sure,
you know what I mean? So I agree with that. I think you have to box some things to be able to bring the issue to light and then go out here and say, look, I'm human too. And I feel the same way that you do. My challenges are just different. They look different. You know what I mean?
Right.
How do you deal with technology with respect to these kind of problems? Do you think there's a place for technology to solve social problems and polarization among people?
I think I'd be foolish to answer that with a no. I think it's absolutely right. I'm not sure that I see a lot of it in the banking side, right? So how do we get people access to capital? I mean, look, if you don't have a bank account today, you're either getting paid in cash, you got a check, you got to go cash somewhere. These organizations are predatory in terms of the amount of money they take. What if you got a family in Guatemala and you work in Little Rock and you need to send them money? You're going to spend 8 to 12 to 15% of those wages to send money to somebody. I mean, that's nonsense, right? These cellular devices that we walk around with today they're extremely powerful. And you look at places like Africa, right? So there's no phone lines. There never were. Now there's cellular systems where these people can communicate, go to market, pay each other, do things. So how do we integrate all these things to give the power of that technology and get it into the hands of people that enables them to do better, right? And to improve their lives and not be a victim of these predatory approaches to how they manage their finances and capital, if at all, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunity there, I think.
A lot of needs that can be met just with technology in general.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I walk, the streets of Arkansas every day and, of Little Rock, and, you can't walk any city today without, bumping into some homeless folks. And every time I see it, it's just like, man, not what are we doing? What can I do about it? And I don't know the answer to that. And I really do think about it every day because it's tragic, it's problematic, and I don't know that there's a single answer. I think there's a lot of people working on it, particularly in places like San Francisco and so forth, and hopefully we'll get some resolution there.
There have to be some human and technology co-opetition, if you will. Would have to be some working of technology and humanity together to find a way to solve some of those problems. I mean, I know that if I had $1 million right now and I was just sitting here on my phone and I knew that I could find someone to help and there was some app that would be like this poor, I would go help them if I could find a way, but I
Right.
don't even really know. But so
Yeah.
I like what your answer is to that, because we're just going to have to work on that together through time. Maybe Little Rock could be the place that starts the technology.
That does that.
Yeah,
if we could figure out how to sort of virtually adopt these people.
Meet human needs through.
Yeah, right. And so, again, being able to kind of virtually adopt these people to create, if you will, almost an endowment to help them. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of people who, like, we've talked about Steve and the good work that he's doing,
Gosh, Steve Bernanke, shout out.
Yeah, there you go, Steve, and the good work that he's doing. And there's so many others, obviously, in the state that are doing good work. But, being able to get the foundation underneath these people to help them rebuild their lives. Mm-hmm. And some of that may require medical attention or psychological attention. But like I said, some of them just have bad luck, and just weren't able to recover from that, and depression, drugs,
whatever it might
opioids, all this kind of stuff. So, I think we can help with that. Ultimately.
Well, I definitely want to lift it up onto a higher note before we end.
There we go.
Because it does. It's painful to see that kind of thing. But what you guys are doing is basically a modern day fairy tale. You've come into the city. You've found something that really what we champion and what we are great at in Arkansas is building a business, like you said, from the ground up. These are hardworking, passionate individuals who have great ideas. And now you're attracting nationwide and global attention to our city and saying, hey, we're going to bring the best in the world to you to compete with you here in Little Rock, and we're going to decide here who gets the money. So it's very exciting, and I appreciate you being here to share that with our audience. So my last question to you is, if I'm listening to this podcast and I have a startup, what is my first move? Is it go to the Venture Center, hang out? Is it call you? Is it send an email? Is it Spark? Isn't the new program one to
Yeah,
look into?
Spark is more for companies that have some established income, right? So kind of a minimum of $50,000 a year. These are likely folks who still have their day job or working on this on the side and really want to get it to kind of the next level. So one of the things we're doing is creating space for them in our space so they can come and work in our environment, give them exposure to mentors, obviously to workshops, those sorts of things, and help them in that path to really help them scale it to the next level, right? So that's really the intent of Spark. So taking these great ideas, these efforts, some validation of the business, people are buying their stuff, right? And help them get to that next level and decide, you know what, I'm going to make this my full-time job. Mm-hmm. And for some people, these also already may be full-time jobs, right? So, but getting from kind of the two founders or the one founder to 5 people or 6 people is one thing, but getting to 10 to 100 and beyond is another series of events that has to occur.
Yeah, watch out for Bluebird Realty. I'm about to come in there and get sparked.
Well, come on. But yeah, the other thing too is certainly through our website, at venturecenter.co. Reach out to us through founders, or there's ways in which to communicate. And Ashley Jones, who handles our community programming, and Daniel Schutte, who's our program manager for the Accelerator programs, myself, obviously Brian, Mimi, all of us are interested to try to be helpful and have you come down, and we'll spend a little time and hopefully get you on the right path.
Yeah. And with all good technology-related companies, you guys have a great Facebook presence. So always you can follow them on Facebook. There are events, the VCS series. There's lots of different things you can go to the Venture Center to enjoy. And you guys are now sitting across from your beautiful new mural there on the wall, looks like.
The mural's been a great addition. We look out the window. We've watched it, I watched him paint it and so forth. And it's really added some value. It's really pretty cool.
It makes people come and take pictures, and I love it. So what about, real quickly though, I've got one more thing because I just thought of it. So you're downtown in between Samantha's and Threefold.
Correct.
How do you deal with that? I would be like, I have to go to lunch again.
So you know how we deal with it. We deal with it by going to Samantha's and Threefold every chance we get.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay,
well. I actually live I live downtown, so I live across the street pretty much from Threefold too. So
have you been to Haybird?
I have. We have been to Haybird actually a number of times, and they're doing a great job there.
I think they named that for me because every time I walk by, they're like, Haybird, and I'm like, I'm in there. I'm going to go in there and eat. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story.
And, well, thanks for having me. This is awesome. And thank you for what you're doing. I mean, this is great stuff, and as we talked about earlier, one of the things about what we're doing here is making people aware of what we're doing here. So thank you for creating awareness and sharing our story and just making Little Rock and Arkansas better. That's awesome. Love it,
thank you.
Jamie.
Thank you. You guys are incredible over there. So we'll see you soon.
Okay, great deal.
Signing off. Blocktalk, we're out.